When Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart died 200 years ago, he left behind him an unfinished composition. It was a mass for the dead. The story behind the composition of this masterpiece began in July 1791, when Mozart was hard at work on the magic flute. A mysterious grey messenger appeared and handed him a note in which a person who wishes to remain anonymous asked if Mozart would accept a commission. Encouraged by his wife Constanze, Mozart accepted. The advance payment of 50 ducats was extremely welcome. He promised to deliver the score within 4 weeks. The messenger left only one condition. Mozart should under no circumstances try to find out either the name or the whereabouts of the person who had commissioned the Requiem. In fact, the mysterious messenger was a servant of Count Walsegg-Stupach, a rich aristocrat with an estate south of Vienna. Count Walsegg was a cultivated man, a lover of the arts, an amateur musician, and an actor. He possessed, however, a rather odd side to his character. He persuaded well-known composers to write things for him which he would copy and then pass off as his own compositions. Earlier in the year, the Count's beloved wife had died, aged only 21. It was in her memory that he asked Vienna's most popular composer, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, to write a requiem. Mozart instantly set to work, but he was interrupted a few days later by an even more pressing task, the composition of an opera for the coronation in Prague of Emperor Leopold II, who was also King of Bohemia. Work was put aside on the Requiem, and Mozart composed La Clemenza di Tito. He traveled with his family to Prague to conduct the premiere himself. Shortly before he left Vienna, the grey messenger reappeared to inquire about the progress of the Mass. Mozart promised to resume work on the Requiem immediately after his return to Vienna. But he was delayed again by the premiere of the Magic Flute in September and by the need to complete several occasional works, dance music for instance, all of which diverted him from the Requiem commission. Mozart's health gave increasing cause for worry. He was under enormous stress, and working on the Requiem made him melancholy, for he had come to believe that he was writing his own Requiem. One afternoon, as they were in the Prater, Mozart actually voiced this fear. Constanze hid the score for a couple of days until his mind was at ease again. On November the 20th, 1791, Mozart was seized by a rheumatic fever. He was confined to bed and had severe attacks of pain caused by internal inflammations. Despite the illness, he worked with desperation on his Requiem. He acquainted his pupils with the structure of the work, and he made notes about the instrumentation he planned to use. One day, friends came to sing through the music, Mozart himself taking the alto line. The legend is that Mozart broke into tears when the singers reached the Lacrimosa movement, the last pages of the manuscript which are in his handwriting. On November the 28th, Mozart's condition deteriorated so considerably that his physician called in another doctor for advice. Bloodlettings were prescribed, but alas, they only contributed to the wasting away of Mozart's frail body. On the night of December the 5th, shortly after midnight, at the age of 35, death carried Mozart away. Following the custom of the day, Mozart's widow did not participate in the burial ceremony. Mozart had died with many debts. It was essential for Constanze not to renounce the Requiem commission. Mozart had left sketches, at least, for nearly all the movements, and Constanze decided to have the composition completed in her husband's spirit by a fellow composer, thus giving the impression that Mozart had managed to complete the work himself. It was a daunting task. Two composers began and gave up. Finally, Franz Xaver Süssmayr, the most intimate friend of the family in Mozart's last year, produced a completed version, adding all the remaining parts. Süssmayr's handwriting was very similar to Mozart's. And so, by the spring of 1792, Constanze was able to present to the Grey Messenger a full score of the Requiem. It was here at St. Stephen's Cathedral in Vienna that Mozart's funeral rites took place on the 6th of December. Contrary to popular belief, Mozart was not buried in a pauper's grave, but according to the funeral arrangements of that period, the body was transported in a cart to the cemetery of St. Mark's, which is several miles outside the old city walls. It was dark, no one attended the procession, and there was no final ceremony. The corpse was simply covered with lime and buried in a communal grave. Within a few years, the precise location of that grave had been forgotten. The gravedigger had died. His successor was unable to remember where the grave had been.